So, whilst Carl's, there we go. It's we're all on. Slightly later than planned, but these things will happen with technology. And I left my coffee downstairs. My God. So good. Well, good to. It's not been a while. You know, we've seen each other quite recently, but let's get on with this one. So thanks for joining, and thanks for those who are attending. For your patience while we got this set up. So yeah, I hope everyone can see the slides. We have an interesting panel today, and so let's get down to what it's about. So obviously you can see the topics, which is the ESIM Surge, and we'll get onto that. Travel and roaming, when will it recover? It's a very interesting topic. I've spoken to a lot of people, especially in the travel industry, about, and everybody here has as well. Changes in mobile usage we've touched on a previous one, and I think it was very interesting stuff that we learnt, but we'll bring some of that into this one, and the areas of the mobile that have grown. So the format is quite informal. There's a few things. So this is almost like launching an MVNO. It started with a great number of things that it was going to do, and slowly, as the launch was delayed by 2 weeks, we got it a lot simpler. And so today is basically just a few invited panelists, and which is just as well. There are some polls, which hopefully I'll remember to do on this one, which I forgot on the previous one. But this is a closed one. The next ones will be a little bit more open, and there are some great additions that we will get in, and it'll hopefully not be like an MVNO that never incorporates them. And then in 2021, there are a lot more interesting things that we're going to add. So yeah, I think with that, we should get on with it. The format, again, it may change, but yeah, it's essentially the essence of it should be like the kind of coffees that we all miss, or the, dare I say, the odd drink that we may have with colleagues. But we get 2 to 4 subjects, 2 to 4 panelists, and we've obviously got things that we want to say about it. It's not just an ad hoc thing. So essentially, we'll go through them, introduce them. There will be some things that we uncover as we're going along, and slowly we're going to start bringing obviously people in because what's important is that we all go away with a so what, right? And I think there's a gap here, because a lot of the webinars are either very short and they don't get into it, or they're an hour and they get into the meat and then you have to go. I think this should be just like those coffees that we all miss, where you go and sit with so-and-so and you go, I'm glad I sat down and had a coffee with X, Y, and Z, because I was thinking, this, and it's actually that. And so, yeah. So with that, I think, and my coffee downstairs, we should get into the ESIM Surge. So there has been an absolute, to Mia's delight, there has been an absolute surge in ESIM demand as we have gone through the present changes of 2020. So probably Mia, do you want to start, seeing as you are in the top? For me, at least, you're in the top left-hand corner.
Brilliant. Yeah. Well, I think there is a lot of reasons behind the search of eSIM, and yes, I'm very excited about just that. Do I think COVID has accelerated eSIM and its use cases? Absolutely. Even though some people say that travel is one of the most used use cases for eSIM, but COVID has just showed us that there is another important reason why eSIM is so important, and that's because of the digital onboarding. So I also think with both now Apple and Android selling eSIM devices, and Motorola Razr, which I know Rob it has his favorite phone, which is the first eSIM only phone. I think that's also put down really showed the market, what's up and coming, and it's going to be eSIM. So yeah, I'm super excited, and I'm glad to see this change, because a year ago in Amsterdam, when I was speaking at the MVNO World Conference, the operators kind of feel for eSIM was not as hot as it is today. So I'm glad to see that change, and I'm glad to see these really new innovative companies that follows with eSIM. And also, because we spoke about this recently, about the new devices coming out in the market, and I said, I'm not really keen to buy a new device because it's not really that big of a change on them. They might have like a new camera, or you can do super slow-mo, which I've never used, but I think I have on my phone. But with the eSIM, it actually changes the design that we can make on these phones. And that, I think, is going to be the next big selling points for the OEMs.
Good. Okay. Rob, do you want to pick up on that?
Yeah, for me, I think I've not seen any figures on the Surge, and so I don't know quite how big it is. But I think the more exciting thing for me is how this will change the model of how services are provided to consumers and businesses as well. So the removal of that need for a physical item to make a service work, I think it opens up lots and lots of different channels and lots of ways to interact with customers, get your service onto that customer device, and it can, as I say, it completely changes the dynamic of how they get that service and the number of ways that they can get that service. So it could be something as simple in that travel case as someone walking through an airport and seeing an advertisement, opening a page, you've got the service. That is great. And even outside the travel case, you could get people having services to try, like trial services. So yeah, really exciting times.
Good. Okay, Carl.
Yeah, I'd echo both of those. I guess those comments. The only thing I would ask, and what I was seeing, I'm with Robin, not fully understanding the numbers behind the Surge, but there's definitely a lot of momentum to drive this, and it's cost. The cost of SIMs cards and the logistics, not so much the SIM card, but the logistics that sit behind it, and getting that into your customers' hands isn't cheap. And if you can take that cost out, then whatever type of operator or service provider that you are, then that's obviously a benefit. And it's a headache, certainly from an administration point of view, and making sure you've obviously got unlimited stock within reason, of course, but unlimited stock, and it's a lot less to manage. So it's very much what I see is driving uptake in this.
It's interesting. Well, we've got a question from Mia coming, which I'll get to in a second. But it is interesting that you touched on that, Carl. I'll do them in order. Try and remember everything. There's a lot going on. But the eSIMs are generally more expensive than physical SIMs in the cost of the physical or non-physical device, however you want to foresee it. But yeah, I mean, we have some experience of logistics and SIMs, and it ain't pretty. But going on to the Surge, that we have, that I've seen anyway, is from our own network, is both on the IoT and consumer SIMs, but also speaking to colleagues in network operators that people have been the actual consumer desire that, and I think this touches on your point, Mia, that whilst in the February they were going, what's the point? Every network operator has now seen people who are displaced or moving around, like just within Europe, the amount of people who, because of COVID, have moved back to their country or have moved to the country, etc., and now having a SIM, or just from an insurance point of view, to even if you're not using it, is massive. But if I can just go to this question from Gary Waite, it's a question to Mia, and apologies, I'm going to read this out like some crusty old newsreader, because we're not quite there yet, but we can, and I don't feel like I should answer it live on Mia's behalf. I don't know if you can see it. I don't know how to delegate this, but it says, it looks like, a question to Mia, it looks like all the new mobile devices have eSIM capability, but not all the mobile networks are supporting it yet. Are there any reasons for that?
That's a great question. That is a great question. And if we look at the mobile devices that was shipped in 2020, 100% of the Google devices shipped was eSIM compatible, and 80% of the iPhones were. So it's obviously something that the OEMs are pushing, which is great. And I see it almost like a triangle. And it was the same thing when the dual SIM slot came out in the phone. So it was, you know, it's driven between the OEMs, the public, and the operators. And then, you know, the regulators are in there somewhere in the mix. And I think when it comes to the eSIMs, it was driven first by the OEMs for various reasons, like I mentioned before, is to make them lighter and thinner and more innovative. And then when the public caught on, which they have now, they are pushing it from their side as well. The operators, they're not super keen to the start, because this means that suddenly someone can jump from one to another operators very quickly, and they're scared about the churn point of view. So if you would ask me a year ago, you know, why the mobile operators not doing it, I would say they're probably because of churn. Now, I would say that if they're not doing it, they're going to miss out. For a few reasons, because other mobile operators are doing it, and that there is a demand for it on the market. So if you don't follow the market, you're going to fall behind the market. But then there is also a question if we're looking at the MNOs, because for them it shouldn't be a question, it's a non-question. But for the MVNOs, that could be a question, because it's also, for some MVNOs, they see it as an investment. It's going to be an upfront cost to become eSIM ready. They have to fork out some money, and they're hoping that they would be able to get it back. And maybe they don't really see the use case for it. So that I can understand, that for the smaller MVNOs, that could be a question of pricing. But for the MNOs, I would say if you don't jump on the train now, people's going to drive past you.
Absolutely, yeah. I mean, from our point of view, speaking as Conecto, we are now. I mean, we always let people do eSIM and physical SIM, and we always used to put that process either onto the customer or we would take it on. And quite frankly, the cost of setting up and getting into eSIM has been, even though we've had some pretty large MVNOs, it's been a little bit too much for MVNOs that are seeking us out, which is seeking flexibility. But what has changed now, I think, is the fact that you can have the tongue twister of the eSIM on a physical EEIUC SIM, which you will not be able to say after a few drinks at the Christmas party. But we're moving now to a process where before we were having the logistical nightmare that Carl quite rightly put, of having lots of SIMs and shipping them around, to being able to, I mean, the Surge is, we're now speaking to customers who don't know if they're going to need, when we're getting on to the next question now quickly, as travel recovers, they don't know if they're going to need 100,000 or 1 million SIMs, and there's just no way you can, I mean, before we were forecasting, do you want 10,000 or 100,000? There's no way that we're going to be able to have 1 million SIMs in, and yeah, I mean, you can see Carl's face. It's like, because we've been through a nightmare, and Rob has personally done this recently. So yeah, I mean, that is one of the reasons. So I hope, Gary, that has answered your question. We have a poll that is 50-50 on people using eSIMs, which you know, I honestly didn't think, and I certainly don't think, I mean, I don't know if I'm being unfair, but maybe you know, at the beginning of the year wouldn't have been the same. So you are seeing a blank screen now, but we are going to fill that up with stuff and the findings that we see before we get them on. So I think if we can move on to the next one, I'm going to end this poll and we can move on to the next topic. Is that good?
Sounds great. I think if we're looking at the numbers of the eSIM, the people that actually will use eSIM, so according to some studies, they reckon that between 40 to 45% of all handset users will have an eSIM compatible handset by 2025. And that's pretty impressive. So I love the poll though. I couldn't even answer it. I tried. There would have been a great result for the yes side.
It's yeah, I mean, I tell you what, when you see the demonstration videos of the people with the funky backgrounds, it looks just so much easier than this. But I'm going to get rid of that window. I'm going to get rid of the Q&A window. I don't know if you're seeing that. Are you seeing that one? I don't know if you're not seeing it. Well, sorry, Gary, I hate, I'm going to leave that one open then if no one can see it. So we're going on to the next one, which is, when will it recover? I have had some interesting conversations with people in all different sizes of airlines, and people who have all sorts of businesses addressing travel. But I think if we can do this in reverse order, Carl, when you were, I think you've got luggage distributed around the world.
On different continents here at the moment. My view is nobody knows, I guess, is the obvious answer. So you're into a little bit of crystal ball here. Well, the average length of a pandemic, regardless of what governments are telling us, is 2 years. And that feels about right. It feels about right that next year everybody's got used to, I guess, the current environment of where we are, and we'll start to feel confident to travel again. I know a number of tourism boards in Europe, France, Italy, and Greece are planning, and Spain as well, are planning for much reduced numbers this time round, and therefore have to think about that as financial support packages for that particular industry in their countries. That's a measure of, I guess, of the package holiday. So I think that level will, I can see that being another year. I can see that being 2022 before that recovers fully, depending on your definition of recovery. But there would be quite a bit of travel, hopefully next summer, assuming no third wave. From a business point of view, I think business travel will recover pretty briskly once, and therefore from an ESIM point of view, that's the opportunity, as Rob was saying, to be able to trial services or pick up, if you're in country for a week or 10 days, to pick up a local service that way. I think that will recover pretty sharpish, if I was honest.
Rob?
Yeah, I'd agree entirely with Carl. I think it depends very much on the definition of recovery. I can see there being an initial surge when things become perhaps a little better, but how many surges or how much sustained level of travel would be enough for the industry to recover? I think that's almost an unanswerable question, but yeah, I think there's a lot of pent up demand that will continue for several years after things normalise.
I'm sure. Mia?
Well, I think it's funny that you guys all talk about COVID. Here in Sweden, maybe we can start on what's this pandemic that everyone is talking about. No, but jokes aside, if someone would have asked me this time in March last year, I would say, I hope it's coming back for European summer so we can, kickstart everything again. And that obviously didn't happen. And I think some of it maybe lay on this vaccine that they're bringing out and testing, because that could definitely be something. You see the Australian airlines are talking about, you can travel with them if you've got proof that you've been vaccinated. They're trying to get all these various things out. So I'm not really sure when travel is going to recover. I'm hoping it's going to be, end 2021, as the big travel bureaus are saying. But what I do think is that when travel recover, people have gotten an understanding about how important connectivity are. So the people that would choose to stay connected whilst traveling is going to be a lot higher. So we might see a reduce in the silent roamers that we're seeing today. And also that's where the eSIM is going to play a big part when it comes to this, because, all the big travel companies out there, all the big travel insurance companies out there, for them to include eSIM as a value add solution in their proposition, it makes perfect sense. So that's my personal opinion. I'm hoping travel is going to come back earlier, because I miss conferences a lot.
Yeah, it is. Well, I mean, that was one of the polls that every time I try to launch, I get the eSIM poll as well. But I think if you go back a little bit, probably in the summer we did have a little surge. I know I managed to get down to Spain, and in July and early August, the hotels were getting to a 50% occupation, and everything seemed to be okay-ish, but it all fell apart from there. But I think everybody thought we would be in Barcelona this February. And I honestly don't think we're going to be necessarily in the same way, in the same format in 2022 in Barcelona. I don't know. But the reasons I question that, and again, I don't know if and obviously this is based on speaking to the bigger airlines who probably have the deeper pockets and they can stay for longer, but they're seeing that 2021 we may recover consumer, but business won't fully recover until 2022, or if ever, because a lot of businesses are going, we've saved how much? I suppose in the consumer side, it's quite interesting. I saw, it's a slight parallel, but I saw so many people of all elements of society have realized how much money they've saved by not spending money going out. And I think the businesses that they are going to question: are we going to spend 5 days in Barcelona? But
I would almost say it's the opposite. I'm putting my foot out there.
You're going to spend 10 days to make up.
Yes. No, but I think, I was just
You're going to go live in Barcelona.
I'm going to be living at these conference places. No, but I was clearing out my box today, or one of my drawers, which I should have done earlier, was for one conference last year. And that box was filled with business cards that I had scribbled all these various ideas on the back with all these amazing people that I met at these conferences. And a lot of the people that I met at the conferences have actually brought me either business, or they brought me insights that's taken me further within the business that I'm doing. So I would say that, you would be slightly foolish as a company if you would stop it, because that rubbing shoulders at the water coolers, at the conferences, I think is a lot more important for businesses than having a virtual conference where people just watching pre-recorded material and then jump out. So I'm hoping you're wrong, Christian.
Well, no, I mean, I don't know if I'm wrong or right. I'm just, but I may be weird, because I used to fly out on the first plane on Tuesday morning and get the last plane back. And because there were no good parties anymore in Barcelona, they all went. But no, joking aside, I love Barcelona. I managed to spend a few days there this summer, but I just think that we will. I don't think we'll go back to normal as we've seen it as quickly or ever, and I don't know what that is. Certainly,
don't say the new normal. Don't say it.
No, well, it's I was resisting, but I think on that note, we can move on to the next point, which is how. Well, we've already had a bit of a sort of taster on this that we touched on inadvertently by talking about devices, but how mobile usage is changing with the COVID and lockdowns, or non-COVID, as you have in Sweden, obviously. But Carl, I suppose, do you want to jump in?
Yeah, sure. The point I've made, I guess, previously is this obviously working from home or from lockdown, or certainly out of an office environment, where let's be more broad, has seen an awful lot more video calls, whereas previously the audio calls were using probably a mobile device. Platforms like WebEx and Zoom and Teams and etc. Are being used an awful lot more, particularly for collaborative working and sharing of various projects, and being used, I guess, as a central platform for delivering various projects or deals or whatever's going on within a business that involves virtual working and virtual teams, even more than just direct reports, shall we say, when you're working across the business. So I've seen a lot more of that. And then again, I'll bring the statistic up that Cisco were reporting over the first 2 months of the lockdown in the UK. This was a global statistic, that their volume of minutes had gone up 5-fold, and the amount of video calls had gone up, I think, something similar, 5 to 7-fold, etc. And therefore they have to build out this capability within 30 days. So certainly that's become much more of a feature, and the working away from the office has become very important, and the systems and capability underlying that had to be rolled out and enhanced. And I think a lot of these companies, I think I quoted insurance previously, but there's a lot more industries which were very entrenched in an office working environment, have realised that the world's not stopped, because people are not physically in an office. and are now looking at how much they're paying per square foot for prime real estate, when particularly they could work some people from home and start to shrink that. And I think that's a trend that's going to continue. From a device point of view, well, I guess that's a pick your poison and whatever you're happy to be using, whether that's a small device, small smartphone, right the way up to a traditional desktop environment, or somewhere in between. But I don't think it's going away. I think it's only going to increase. I think the amount of collaboration is much more important. And I think what will evolve will be the etiquette that surrounds that. And you'll get some very big spikes, growth sectors and spikes. I mean, education was one, medical was another that were the top two that Cisco saw progressing. So, yeah, well, what we've seen is just the tip of the iceberg, I think. Sadly, whether you like it or not, it ain't going away.
Well, I think you've hit on something interesting, that hit on Mia's point, in that we can take that money that was spent on offices and spend it on spending more time in Barcelona at an extended conference. Maybe. So, Rob, are you? What's your view on?
Just to initially echo what Carl has said. Obviously there's been a huge increase in the amount of video and OTT traffic during this lockdown. But one thing I saw again in Ofcom data was that actual average mobile call time has increased. So this is just on plain old mobile voice, and things have. And pre-lockdown, the average mobile call time was 3 minutes 40 seconds. Now it's 5 minutes 26 seconds. And
wow.
you can work out what the reasons for that is. Yeah, I don't know about everybody else on here, but in these four walls, I'm very familiar with these four walls over the last since March when I exited the office, and I guess we just take a little bit more time to speak to our colleagues and the people we communicate with over the phone. So even when it's not in a meeting kind of Cisco environment or video environment, that jump in, it's just under 2 minutes of average call duration.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah, no, I'm totally aligned with Rob and Carl, and I think from my point of view, because I work from home all the time, so having these four walls as you know, as I sit in every day is no new, but I've seen a lot of changes in the people that I speak with on a daily basis. I mentioned before to you guys that you get more friendly with your customers, for example, because suddenly you end up in their kitchen and you're not in their office. And you see what's happening around that. Well, that might be some funny stories that I won't tell.
That can go two ways, though, can't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. But sure. But then also you see people who normally you get on a call and they're like, yeah, let's start with the agenda, point 1, 2, 3. Suddenly, I think it's because they're so socially, malnurtured, that they're just like, hey, how's the weather? Let's talk about this and this, and you'd be like, okay. And then so you can see that people do have a need to kind of get that a little bit more chit chat in the start of the calls to get it out of their system, which is nice. I like it. I'm not saying it's bad.
Well, can you imagine 100 years ago in the previous pandemic? I mean, all sorts of things, from the hygiene levels to we've got a terrible distribution of misinformation at the moment, but but honestly, if you take all that aside, the mobile, I think, is a huge and obviously increasingly more laptops, etc. They are a huge.
Well, I can just tell a quick thing about that, because I work on a project called The Unconnected, which means to unconnect people who currently don't have internet connection. So we work in villages in Latin America or Africa and India, and connecting school kids and certain regions which is out of connectivity. And I was reading this article about this woman, and she lives in COVID times right now, and she's got no connectivity whatsoever. So she's just getting all the information from her neighbor that gets it from her neighbor. So everyone is like, if she gets the information to do something really strange, She's like, well, if it saves me from COVID, I'm going to eat this raw garlic, so what it might be. But instead, you know, wash your hands, keep distance. So 100 years ago, for sure, but it's happening now today as well.
Yeah, it's, I mean, yeah, some of the stuff that you see going around. Let's not get onto the bleach conversations. Good. So I think we can move on to the next one, which is curiously, I mean, it's I suppose it can seem similar, but I think I'll lead into this one because we've already covered it a bit, but I think if we can expand on it, is that we've all been very innovative in our way of using devices, but I'm still on the same tariffs, and all these eSIMs that have been sold are basically the same tariff but on an eSIM. There's going to be a Black Friday tomorrow, which will be selling all the same services that we've had. So what's going to have changed, assuming we are here, in the way we use or the way we buy our mobile services going forward? What conversations should we be having with maybe MVNOs and customers and network operators about tariff changes? And probably start with you, Mia, to go in reverse order.
Yeah, well, I think it's interesting. And this is something because I also do some work in the teleconsulting business. And we're working with new started MVNOs or entrepreneurs that are looking to start their new MVNOs. And a trend that we see coming is that people want to start eSIM only MVNOs, so eSIM focused MVNOs. And I think that's driven just because of, for example, COVID. Because as you said, Christian, you've been on your plan for a while. But if this new hot smoking MVNO came in and said, you know, hey, Christian, it's Black Friday. Here is this really cool new plan, which you can change to in a heartbeat by clicking on this button. You know, that's a customer acquisition method that's currently is not being used properly, I think. So I think these guys coming onto the market doing eSIM MVNOs, they're onto something. And I think COVID has got something to do with the urgency of doing that.
Well, yeah, you still got, I mean, all these Black Friday phone offers are going to have had somebody in a warehouse putting a SIM card with a box, which I think you hit on, Carl. Logistically, is just like anyway. So, Rob?
Yeah, same again, really. The removal of the need for a physical product in eSIM, you know, having that being able to acquire customers on the logical plane rather than the physical plane is fantastic, and it opens up lots and lots of different channels, and removal of that need for a physical item or indeed physical interaction in COVID times is going to be beneficial to customers and beneficial to those who supply them.
Carl?
Yeah, echo what's been said. I think one of the key points, I've certainly worked in the last year with a couple of MVNOs who are not in the market yet, but are just looking at eSIM only. They're kicking and screaming that they have to use physical SIMs. As I said previously, you know, they see the end-to-end cost as high, and the disruption to the business and new processes and everything they have to put in there. Whereas, obviously, if you've got a digital customer acquisition tool, it's a very, very more simple conversation. So, yeah, we're seeing the same thing.
And do you think, so if we go full circle, do you think, I mean, coming back to the spending the whole of, was it 3 months now, I think, in Barcelona at the next 3GSMA, do you think people are seeing this kind of move to a world where they can, I mean, these four walls came up a few times, I dare say not necessarily in a positive way, but do you think there is this kind of aspiration that we may even be seeing the eSIM being able to help us, and that we can get away? Because I mean, I'm seeing that certainly the airlines that I spoke to said that they're going to try and jump on whatever, and we've even seen it. You know, whenever a country or a destination got below the threshold for quarantine, suddenly everybody wanted to go there. And once you're there, your insurance company is, your insurance is valid, and you can stay there. Is there an aspiration where people are now wanting to have these SIMs? Do you think to be able to facilitate, or just in case they end up having to stay there, or?
I think a multi-SIM solution's been in people's minds for quite a period. I don't whether that's multi-device or multi-SIM devices. I think the concept is not a new one, and not a particularly big leap, certainly for the business traveller. Certain consumer markets, I think it would be, but so I think to go in, and once you go more than, there'll be, for each individual, there'll be a threshold for where it's worth taking the pain to set it up and going through the aggravation of setting a new one up, or buying a new SIM in country, and that might be 2 days, might be 4 days, or whatever, that they'll go through. If it's an eSIM solution, that pain threshold comes down, because it's just, it's simple. You can be doing it on the taxi from the airport, frankly, and therefore I think it is something will happen. How quickly it will, I think there's certainly pent-up demand, that's unsatisfied, and then how quickly after that plateau it increases, I don't know. It's probably Mia's got a greater insight than I am there.
Yeah, no, I think you're totally right with what you're saying. And I think travel SIMs as we see them today is going to be a non-thing in a few years. Travel eSIMs, however, in certain regions, I don't think is going to be a thing of the past. And that's only because of the rate situation, that in certain places you will be able to get even better rates as a traveler coming in using a travel eSIM than you getting a local eSIM from a local MNO or MVNO, which is interesting in itself. But then, coming from a background with an eSIM aggregator, I think that's definitely so clever. So you've got the one place where people can go purchase an eSIM for their destination, whether it's a travel eSIM or a local eSIM. I guess that doesn't really matter, but it's definitely going to be the future. I don't know if COVID is going to impact that at all, to be honest, because I think it's going to happen whether COVID is here or not. But yeah, definitely, connectivity has proven to be a lot more important for people now after the fact that COVID has hit, and people have managed and learned how to use technology in new ways that they didn't do before. They maybe never did, video chats and whatnot. So their usage habits has changed.
I mean, certainly a lot of we sort of touched on travel a lot, but a lot of the eSIM growth that we saw in IoT has been fueling the extra logistics that is needed around the food chain, essentially. I think the food and other stuff that we hoard, and it is ironic that as we are now hoarding, or the world seems to be hoarding, giant rolls of toilet paper. The tiny little SIM is somehow too big to hoard, and we need to have the eSIM. But yeah, I mean that surge, I think it's interesting you touch on, is I can't see myself going back into supermarkets anytime soon, even just for the horror of supermarkets, which you may correct me, like in the previous one when I showed my enthusiasm for the Christmas party, and that wasn't universal. But the other thing is just the quality that has been enabled. I mean, I remember, like, in the first few days of COVID, one of my daughters going, "My God, this lettuce actually tastes of lettuce," and it had been sent by a company that provided restaurants before. And I never bought the cheap, nasty. I wasn't even buying supermarket lettuces. I was going to, like, the nice market and getting nice. It's not like you were getting the Tesco finest and suddenly you're having to buy a £15 lettuce. It is so. Yeah, I mean there's all sorts of surges in eSIMs that have been around the logistics of moving unforeseen amounts of gloves, cleaning products, and obviously food, etc. So good. I think we should sort of, one of the things I wanted to do with this is that we have at the end, before we get the other interesting things, and I have noted as well, because there are a few things that we do want to have on here, but I don't think anyone's, and they're quite innovative, a few of them, and you know some of them, but there is no solution yet for virtual business cards. And as Carl will know, one of my pet hates is business cards anyway, but virtual business cards I can get onto. So let's get that'll be one of the things we'll have to try and introduce and get people writing down. But if we can go through in order quickly and get the so what of each one, I think the ESIM Surge, so it has been travel and logistics, I think, is the what has been behind its surge. I don't know if anyone's got anything to add to that.
Primarily logistics, I think. Well,
I think, yeah, I mean, well, it's future travel, actually. Yes, you're right. It's not present travel. The people who are suddenly moving into the eSIM and the acceptance. But yeah, I mean, and I think you touched on a very important point there, Rob, because those are the SIMs that are actually being used. There has been a huge surge in demand for eSIMs, but and we touched on churn, I think, at the beginning. It'll be interesting to see what the churn is on those, because a lot of people will be keeping them for when they go away. But their summer holidays were cancelled, and then Christmas was cancelled, and touchwood Easter won't be cancelled. So,
and don't forget to add COVID to that as well, because I think COVID and the need of adding people keep talking about this COVID, so I have to include that as well. But people keep talking. I think the digital onboarding that comes with eSIM has also been a bit of a kick up the back for operators to chop.
Well, yeah, and we won't get onto that, and that's probably another subject for being able to actually port out afterwards and not do some, but that is definitely a subject for another webinar. So traveling, when will it recover? I mean, obviously we don't know, but I mean the views that I think, and tell me if I've just remembered my own stuff and forgot everyone else's whilst trying to do 27 things at once. But I mean, we don't really know when it will recover, but I think there is a lot of pent-up demand. But business travel, I think, is going to take a bit longer than consumer travel. I mean, consumers can jump on whenever a ban is lifted. We've seen them jump on a plane and party as hard as they can, with or without a mask. Is that correct, or have I? Good. And then the changes. I mean, the changes they're interesting. I think we are going to see the market is lagging behind. Customers are demanding all these different services, but we're still a bit like it reminded. They're almost like the insurance company. I keep waiting for that email to say, we've reduced your we've seen that you're not using your car anymore. Here's a discount on your insurance, but sadly not. It must be in the spam box somewhere. But yeah, I mean, I'm sure there's lots of people sitting on huge amounts of unused roaming minutes at least. And then the mobile growth. I don't know if anyone else wants to sum that up, or Rob.
Yeah, just echoing the earlier point. Yeah, people are still using mobiles. They might still be using other means of communications, OTT and conference type communications, but average call time has increased a lot.
And it's interesting that it's made the jump from what we've seen from long distance and ethnic operators. Their minutes of use was always in the minutes versus the seconds, which probably echoes the fact that we're not in touch with people as we may have wanted or want to be.
Yeah, not everyone will want to speak to has got access to that sort of technology or OTT stuff. Some people we want to speak to have just got a phone.
Or your internet is just so saturated that, or you've gone into the shed. I've heard these four walls. I've recorded as almost the, you know, in some of the magazines they have the, you know, the key words that have been written in that. These four walls, I think, is the one for this call. Okay.
And I think that on that last point is because I was speaking with my mother-in-law this morning in Australia, and she still have, you know, limited. She's not watching this, I think, unless she's covered as live. No, and she was saying because she's got limited Wi-Fi, and in Sweden that's not a thing. Like you've got Wi-Fi at home and it's unlimited. Everyone's got unlimited. But she said after she's been home and some of her kids are still living at home, and you know their partners and maybe the grandkids even come by sometime. Generation living, it's beautiful. But they literally ran out of data within the first week. And now they're all using their phones and they're racking up massive bills because they need to increase the usage all the time. So now they need to find other things to do than being on the internet.
But that's, I mean, certainly in Europe and the US, where the steer from the regulators was very much to not impose any restrictions, even on mobile, which has been very tough for some of the mobile operators because they were using the the data revenues and roaming traffic to fund a lot of what we've been talking about in terms of 5G and new services and that's, you know, if you suddenly got to supply everybody with all the data they want. But I think touch wood, I mean, they have been very good certainly in Europe and the US. Of course, you know, with arm behind hand from the regulator. But I think it's shocking that anybody would enforce a data cap in these times.
I think because they've had it since before. It's like that letter from the car insurance saying, "Oh, I see you haven't used your car." "Oh, I see you use more data than normal." You're like, have a little bit of extra, you'll be fine. I can't see the operators doing that either. So I think it's just about us having to learn how to use the data that we have.
I did see, so as on that analogy, I have been made aware of some people who have a multi-story house that the Wi-Fi is really bad, and so everybody has like a 50 and 100 gig data just to get around terrible Wi-Fi. I mean, how bad is that? It's just, but anyway. So, well, thank you very much. We have learnt a bit. We managed to get one poll of the polls out, but not more. We managed to get one question answered. Hopefully we'll get a bit slicker, but I look forward to, I think after these two sessions, the nerves are less, the knowledge will get higher, and these four walls will feel less. But I am looking forward to getting some of the other things in there, and virtual business cards, I think, is one that has been noted down as well. So unless anyone else has got anything else to add, thank you all for coming. And
cheers.
The coffee was great. Unfortunately, I left it downstairs.
It's turned into wine by the time you get down there.
Well, you see, that may or may not be one of the additions coming, but I think we'll have to wait until next week for that one. Okay, thanks all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Cheers. Bye.
See you later.